Christy, welcome to the show. Finally,
I know. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to see what we create together.
it'll be a journey, I'm sure. It's funny. I said to you, but when I messaged you about coming on my show, I was like, "How have you not been on my podcast?" Like, I literally thought you were on, and so I just never brought it up to have you on. And I was like, "Oh no, she's already been on. Like, we're good." Blah blah blah. And I was like, "Holy crap!" Because you and I have been connected for so many years. I've spoken at your event. You've come to my events. We've done a couple things together, and I'm just like this just blows my mind. But all in the right timing, right? Like, I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes. Where I want to start is where I start with most people. I want you to talk about where is Christy today, and then we'll break down how you got there.
Okay, sure. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, a certified life coach. I'm highly trained in things like intuition and energy healing. So I bring all of that together to offer a service called soul therapy for people. And it's kind of this blend of psychology and spirituality and energy and intuition. And it's all for the purpose of helping people to create a life that they're excited about, to be connected to their intuition, to be more magnetic in their lives, because I believe that we can create pretty much anything that we want if we learn how to get to that place where we can be more magnetic.
Yeah, and I love the approach that you take because there are a lot of people in the spiritual space that can be damaging. I've experienced it in my, wandering path into spirituality and all the things in between, but you do it from a place of you're a licensed therapist, right? Like you know how to handle the emotions that come with it. But I want to talk about how do you go from licensed therapist to, you know, I don't even know what word to use with you, right? Like a medium or whatever, like the whole spiritual realm of where you're at. How do you make that leap? Because sometimes those two worlds don't really mix for so many people.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure. And that was the most changing moment of my life was when I was working in mental health therapy. And had you asked me back in that time, this was around 2013 is when all of this started to shift for me. But had you asked me before that, I would have said, I'm going to retire from this job. This is what I want to do. And I was in that place where I checked off all the boxes. I was married. I had the home that I wanted. I had the job that I wanted, working in mental health. I was doing the kind of work that I wanted. I had twin boys. And I got to this place where I was like, okay, so I have everything on Christie's checklist that I thought that I wanted, but something's missing. I'm not happening. And I started to go into this place of there has to be more to life than this. There
Mm.
has to be something that I'm missing. And it was this process of awakening for me. I always call that my spiritual awakening, where all of a sudden I was exploring different spiritual concepts. I was reconnecting with spiritual things and intuitive gifts that I had been connected with in childhood, but I hadn't connected with in a long time. And it was like, it's kind of like in The Wizard of Oz when life was in black and white, and then all of a sudden Dorothy comes out of the house and it's all in color. And that was kind of what happened for me. And I started to see the world differently. I started to see myself differently. And I was really, really uncomfortable. I'm a big believer that God makes us uncomfortable when it's time for us to make moves. And so I was seeing things differently. I was feeling called to help people differently. And so I started to learn about some different things and thought that it was just going to be a hobby, things like that. But it just became more and more clear through that process that I was being called to help people in a different way.
Yeah.
And that the same old ways of doing things in the counseling practice that I was doing before weren't going to work the same, weren't hitting the same for the people that I was helping, but also for myself. And so I felt this calling. And so I started my business, my practice, just a little bit on the side. It was just one day a week. I got this tiny little office and I just said, let me just see. And I started to see people locally. And that was like crazy because before I was even opening the doors, people were like, when can I schedule with you?
Wow.
And so I started to see people like that and that built. And then I went to 2 days a week. And then I got to a place where I was again feeling that pull and that call to expand on that. That counseling agency, it wasn't a fit for me anymore. This place that I had felt so comfortable at one time. And so then I made the leap. And that was really scary, I have to tell you, because I did not have the resources to do that. I had $0 in my savings account. If you know anything about the salary of a mental health counselor, I was making like under $35,000 running the
Oh
counseling
my
program.
gosh.
And I just what yeah, crazy, right? And I was in no position to do that, but there was this calling within me that I knew I was being led by God to do this. And so I took that leap and I transitioned full time into this. And it's just been this journey ever since. So I built up my practice, my business locally. And then somewhere along the way, I started to feel like, okay, there's an even bigger plan for me. There's a bigger vision. And I started to just connect with people outside of my local community. And I started to do virtual sessions and things like that. And then that expanded. And then I got to a place where my schedule gets really booked with things. And so I started to realize, okay, now I've got to find a way to help more people. I've got to figure out how to scale this so I can help people in bigger ways and to be able to help more people because I'm feeling called to do that. And so then I created a membership in my YouTube channel and all the things. So it's just been this journey. And every step of the way, it's been listening to my intuition, that quiet voice inside me that is showing me God's plan for me and where I'm meant to go. I actually had a psychic reading years ago, and she told me all the things that I'm doing now. And I left that reading like that was the worst reading I've ever had. Like, she doesn't know what she's talking about because it was so far out of where I was at the time that I couldn't see it for myself. So it's
Yeah.
just kind of crazy to look back on it now.
Yeah, so I want to go back a little bit. You talked about you had this intuition as a child, and there's so many stories of like kids have this intuition. Like I even remember my cousins. So my grandfather had passed away, and then my cousin had like a newborn baby at the time. And a couple years later, she was in my then grandmother's house and was like, Dada, which is what we called my grandfather. Dada said I should have his bear and like grab this bear out of this thing, right? And so it's like this super creepy story of an intuition that a child had, or a connection, a spiritual connection a child had, that she doesn't have that ability anymore, or she doesn't know how to tap into it, or whatever the case may be. What type of things happened to you as a child that you can recall now? And then what types of tools did you use to begin to re-tap into that? Because I've been told by so many people, everybody has this ability. It's about doing the work to be able to open it up for yourself.
Yeah, and everybody does. That's very true. For me, when I was a very young child, I remember connecting with angels and seeing angels and having them present with me. And that was just my normal. So I had specifically what appeared to be a male and female angel, and they would show themselves to me, but more often it was just I would hear their voices and they would kind of guide me and show me what to do. So my earliest memory of that is actually way back when I must have been really little because I remember I was potty training at the time. So I remember being in bed and thinking I've got to get up and use the potty. And I remember these angels telling me, no, you should get up and do that. And so like that's my earliest memory of that. But I remember them being present and just kind of helping me to make those little decisions, like this would be a better choice for you. And that continued on until I was probably about 7 or so, I think. And then I started to realize, oh, the other kids around me don't know what I'm talking about when I'm referencing this.
Yeah, I must be
And
crazy.
they're not having these experiences. So I started to feel weird. And so somewhere along the way, I kind of shut that off and then reconnected with that again when I was around 18 or 19 years old. I started to have a lot of stuff happening, a lot of visions of things, a lot of seeing things in my bedroom at night. And that phase was kind of scary to the point that I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I
Mhm.
shut that off. And so that was shut off for a long time until I stepped back into my spiritual awakening.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff were you seeing when you were like 18 and 19 that was scary?
I had, well, ghosts. a lot of ghosts, or I call them earthbound energy, and not an energy that I like to connect with, to be honest. But my what I call my vibration, the amount of light that I was carrying in my body wasn't great at that time. I was going through a lot in my life at that time, and so my energy was much more heavy. And so I was seeing things like that. I was seeing shadows in my room. I was seeing things that would appear to be angels, but the energy didn't feel like angels. So
Mm.
it was just kind of wild. And I would wake my parents up a lot yelling in the middle of the night. So I just said, I don't want to connect in this way anymore. I'm not interested in this. I did have some experiences with angels, but it was just very heavy. So I shut that down.
Yeah, and then what made you want to open it back up? Because obviously that is a scary time, and it wasn't like you forgot about it, like you forget about it when you're under the age of 7. Like, what made you want to open that back up? And then I want to get into how can people do this for themselves, and allow it to guide them in the right way.
Yeah. So I don't feel like I really had a choice when it was time for me to open that back up. It was one of those times where I was searching for something, and it was like I was putting a signal out. I knew that I needed something, but I didn't know what I needed. And through that process, things were just kind of led in my life. And part of that, actually, you had Nicole on your podcast before. She was part of that because she was like, hey, let's take these classes. And they were classes on intuition. And we started to do that. And as soon as I started to do that, it was like I opened wide open, almost to the point that it was overwhelming. All of a sudden, I'm doing regular counseling sessions with people, and I'm seeing auras around people, and I'm seeing angels with people. And it made it really awkward because in professional counseling, I can't really acknowledge, oh, you've got an angel standing there with you and they have a message for you.
Yeah, that's crazy. And it's funny. Recently found out that aura is a word that these young whippersnappers are using these days, right? And they use it in a in a similar way, but a very very different way. Have you noticed when you talk about aura now, maybe your sons paid attention a little bit more? Maybe they're like, "Yo, yeah, that's a cool word. Like that's an interesting thing." Like because when we think about these things, right? Aura, say the definition of aura in the spiritual realm.
So, aura is simply your energy field. So, we all have a physical body, but then we have an aura. It's like a bubble around us, and that is our energy field. And that's something that we're all familiar with. It's something we can all feel. Have you ever been in a store and somebody just stands a little bit too close to you and you just feel this need to take a step back? That's because you're feeling their energy field or their aura, and it doesn't blend well with yours. Or we can just get vibes off of people. That's their aura. So yeah, to answer your question, my kids, they're both 13 right now. And so there is pretty much nothing that I do that's cool or makes sense to them. No, we don't talk about auras right now.
You should just it's because my stepson's 14, he'll be 15 next month. But I find these little slang terms on like Instagram reels, and I just start saying them, and he'll be like, "How do you know that?" It's like so uncool when I do it, but it's one of those things where it's like, "Hey man, like I see things that you see. I hear things that you see, or yeah, hear things that you hear." Anyway, I digress. To talk about aura. Obviously, it's so important, right? Because we are all of this energy. How can somebody expand their light and their energy, right? Because we all know somebody at some point in our life when we were sitting in a room filled with people and one person walked in and the whole room just knows like something shifted. Like, can you do things in your life in order to become that person who shifts the energy in a room just by walking in?
Absolutely. And that's when we talk about being more magnetic, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about raising somebody's vibration. That means that they're putting out more light. And the way that you raise your vibration is by simply focusing on yourself and giving yourself whatever it is that you need to feel at your best. Not those things that make you feel good for an instant, but those things that make you feel good for the long term. That long-term self-care, those really simple things that we tend to overlook. I'm doing in my membership right now, we're doing a nervous system regulation. We're focusing on that, but really the reason that it's working for people is because every single day we're doing some kind of a task or a tool, using some kind of a tool that focuses on taking care of ourselves, whether that is using meditation or going for a walk or doing some form of breathing or setting boundaries. And I think that it's all about figuring out what works for you, what it is that you need to feel good and to feel balanced. Because as soon as you start to shift that, your energy changes and people know, they feel it, whether they consciously say, oh, your vibration has raised, your energy feels different. They might not do that, but they just know. And it's amazing the way that opportunities just come to you, that your outer experience can change the more that you just focus on that. I also think that it's about a connection with something higher than you. And the more that you open that connection and you allow yourself to be led through that process, the higher your vibration is going to be and the more magnetic you're going to be in your life or in your business.
Yeah. What about people that are listening to this that aren't necessarily, I mean, most of my audience believes in this type of thing, but what about somebody you might hear it and go, oh, yeah, that's a bunch of BS? Like, I think so many people kind of turn their head away from the, not hate to use this term, but the woo woo side of things because they're like, oh, that's just BS or that doesn't make sense or I'm just going to keep my head down and keep working hard or whatever. How can, like, what's a good way to kind of dip your toe in and start to figure some stuff out? Where should somebody begin?
I think a good place to begin is just by tuning in and listening to yourself. Because when we're talking about intuition and honoring your intuition, it's really just about learning how to trust yourself. And I think we all could get better at that. And I think that we've all also had these experiences where we had a sense of something was off, or that we shouldn't connect with somebody, or that we should connect with somebody, or that we should follow through with an opportunity. And you can call that intuition, or you can call that something else. You can call it just a gut response. But I think the most important thing is to start to learn how to trust ourselves and to honor ourselves and that feeling that we have in that moment. Because I think that we as human beings are really good at talking ourselves out of what we know to be true or what we feel. And I found that when you honor your intuition or whatever you want to call that sooner, you save yourself a lot of trouble. And it allows people to create a lot more success in their lives because it's supporting us on being on our best life path.
Yeah. How do you tap into this ability even further? Because, right, like obviously you had this natural thing that kept popping up and forcing themselves in front of you. But we stated earlier, everybody has this ability. What are tools or tactics people can use to start to connect with angels or start to feel vibration a little bit more and be more aware of the energy around them? Like, what can people do that?
I think that we're all born to do this and we're meant to connect with it because, again, when you connect with your intuition, this is like that intuition for your best life. And so I really encourage people to make sure that they do something to connect with that. I think the best place to start is simply honoring some kind of time in your own energy. So, meaning just allowing that quiet time, because with intuition or deepening your intuitive gifts, you have to be able to listen to yourself. And the world around us is really loud. What other people want from us can be really loud and it can pull at our energy and it can make it really hard to listen to ourselves or to know ourselves or to hear ourselves. And so, some way to just connect with ourselves, whether that's meditation, whether that's going for a walk. I connect a lot in a meditative way when I'm doing my workouts. I just like go into a zone, doing something creative. There's so many different ways that we can connect, or simply just sitting by a body of water or sitting in your car for 5 minutes before you go inside. There's a lot of value in just taking that time to connect with yourself and to be able to hear yourself, because that is how you're going to know what the next steps are, how you feel about things, and what it is that you want.
Yeah, so I've always been obsessed with people's ideas of what the soul journey is through life. Like, and mine has definitely changed over time as I've dove deeper into the spiritual journey and started to ask questions and became curious of like what is all this, right? Like, what's the purpose? Is it just death? Is it heaven? Is it I chose to be here? I chose my parents, and it's on this continuous path of learning. Uh, there's all these options. What is it to you? What do you believe with all the connections you have is the soul journey for somebody?
I think that the soul journey looks different for every single person. I believe Earth to be a big school. and and it's the hardest school. It's the Ivy League of schools because there are other planets that we can go to, but that's another conversation. It's
Or is it?
in school, yeah. And so before we come here, from what I can understand, we choose a path for ourselves. And we decide some experiences that we would like to have. And so a lot of the more challenging experiences that we have are actually ways that we have chosen to grow our souls and to learn certain lessons while we are here. So there are certain experiences on our journey that we sign up for, that we contract for, certain people that we intend to meet on that journey, and all of that stuff. So there's that piece of it. But I also think that we have a lot of free will, that we come here with this ability to create whatever it is that we want to create with the cards that we have been dealt, the cards that we have chosen for ourselves on that path. So there are those things that we're destined to experience, and then there are those things that we, through our free will, can create for ourselves, which is really good and really exciting because no matter how hard life has been, no matter how challenging the circumstances that you built in for yourself here in this life, you still get that free will choice to create amazing things for yourself and to experience really incredible things here on earth.
Yeah. I love how you worded that. And it is so true, right? Like, and it goes back to the phrases that we hear all the time of like, life is, happening for you, not to you. And all those types of things. And when I feel like when I learned that I kind of chose this path for the lessons that I would get. I look at things so much differently now, right? Like I'm not in a place of doom and gloom for as long. I'm not feeling as sad as long. It's a lot easier to kind of reflect on all of that. And I think it's a powerful message, even if somebody doesn't necessarily believe we signed a soul contract to say, hey, I choose these parents, I choose this path, I do these things. It's the idea of like you have choice, period, end of discussion, right? I think that's wonderful. Now I can't just gloss over the fact that you talked about living on other planets, or we could have chose to go to a different planet. What is that? So obviously I believe in aliens, whether they're aliens or whether they're spiritual beings. That's a different conversation. I've watched documentaries on both and what it could potentially be. But what does that mean? We could have chose a different planet.
So it means that there are other universes, there are other places that we have gone or could have gone, and there are other places that we've lived probably past lives on. Some people have lived on other planets, and you'll know too if they have lived primarily on a different planet in more of their past lives because they seem kind of different. They stand out in a way. They feel like an alien, and you can tell. There are people who have lived past lives as angels, and now they are here on Earth to bring a certain energy. There's a lot of earth angels here right now to bring a certain energy because we're going through a planetary ascension, a planetary awakening. And so people who have lived as angels, and you can kind of get an energy from that too, those people that just feel like angels incarnate. And so there's all kinds of different things. There's different realms. I mean, we could probably talk all day about this, but
No, I love it.
we can choose that. But a lot of people chose Earth right now. A lot of the magical people chose Earth right now because they were meant to bring their magic to the Earth in order to support this process, this journey that we're going through.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for sure. I've always been obsessed with the past life thing. It's something that is always curious to me. And what's really funny is like Lauren and I had a conversation about like how I want to come back to this to be a human again after this whole entire spin, and she does not, and she got very upset about it. And I'm just like, look, like I love this. Like I'm loving this experience, this at least this trip around, even though I've been through hard things. I'm loving the human experience. So I wonder I mean, we don't have a recollection of it, but I wonder, kind of where I'll go next. But I really want to tap into like my past life stuff. So we should have a chat offline. Maybe you can help me with that. I'm just,
Definitely.
I'm always fascinated with that kind of stuff. But I want to ask you, and by the way, we should have you back on in the future, and we will dive deeper into the realms and the this and the real mythical
I love it.
things.
I didn't expect we were going to do all that today.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, and there's going to be people that hear this conversation that are go, what a bunch of weirdos, right? And that's perfectly fine.
Mhm.
But I'm going to tell you what, I it started with me saying, what a bunch of weirdos, hearing this type of thing, and then you hear it more, and then you start to become more aware of, right? And I'm sure there's people listening right now, and this is what I love that you said. There are people listening right now going, have I encountered what I would assume to be an angel energy? And even more so, am I an angel energy, right? Like, what kind of questions are we asking ourselves? And just be open to the idea and see what superpowers that might give you. Because I look at everything as an extra tool, a superpower, anything that gets you to that next level. Opening this conversation. So, I wrap up every single interview with a couple of the same questions. But before we get there, since we're talking about this, how can people contact you, work with you, help let you help them tap into their tools? What's all the good stuff?
They can find me on my website at claritybychristy.com. They can find me on most platforms at Christy Clarity.
I love it. I love it. So, guys, make sure you reach out to her, book a session, join the group, do the thing, tap into these tools so you can, really kind of help yourself get to the next level. So, one question I want to ask you is a two-part question. I ask every single person on the show. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are three things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Okay, so my definition of success is a two-part answer. So the first part of that is to be able to follow God's plan for me, to be paying attention. I start my day every single day saying, God, show me how I can be of service. And so the ability to make sure that I'm following through with that, that I'm listening to that, that I'm honoring that, and I'm letting that lead me on my best life path. The other part of that is to be able to follow my free will in order to create a life that I'm excited about. So, whatever that looks like for me, for other people, to be able to create that life that just aligns with everything that I'm wanting to create. And I believe that we're powerful co-creators and that we're never really done with that. So we're always creating more. And so always identifying, okay, what's next for me? How do I continue to grow? How do I continue to expand and to continue to focus on that and to manifest those things into our world?
I love it.
And so, three things that I do every single day. Number one is connecting to myself. So, every day I'm doing something to do that, whether it's meditation, whether it's a walk, whether it's during my workouts. I connect a lot with myself during my workouts, and I find a lot of answers come through during that time. So, some version of that. And then some kind of intentional practice, meaning that I focus on being really intentional every single day in terms of what it is that I'm putting out that I want. So every day I start my day with, this is how I want. For example, I set intentions today about how I wanted this podcast to go. So I think about the things that I have in my day ahead and set intentions around those things, because we know energetically that when we set intentions, we can help to put our order in with the universe and to create that. So some form of intentional practice, and then some version of connecting with God. Sometimes it's conversations with God, sometimes it's prayer, sometimes I'm connecting again through meditation. But for me, that's just such an important part of my life, is to have that connection and to co-create this life together with God.
I love it. And so something popped up. This wasn't going to be one of the. I have two more questions for you, but before we get there, this popped up is when you talked about uh, your definition of success. There are a lot of people in the spiritual community who get a little lost in the spiritual side of things. Trying to word it the right way without upsetting people, but they get a little lost in the spiritual side of things, and they forget that the human part is also a very important piece. How can people, when they start this journey specifically, because I feel like that's where it starts, and they just start spinning out of control, how can somebody make sure they don't forget that the human experience is also insanely important, right? It's important that you were married. It's important that you had two kids. It's important that you build a business. It's important that you do all these things. So what would you say to somebody who might be a little lost, or say to somebody who's starting the journey who might get lost?
I think that it's all about being present in the moment and appreciating it. If we have chosen to come to Earth to have an experience, then we should have an earthly experience. And if we are doing all the things like spiritual bypassing and, oh, it can only be love and light and good vibes only and all of that stuff, then I think that we're missing a lot of the experience. That stuff is so fun and it's so magical and beautiful, but also to just be present with your life and what you have going on here and to focus on that and to enjoy it and to hold gratitude for those little moments throughout the day. There's so much that we have here on earth that we don't have anywhere else. So we should enjoy it.
Yeah, so you've created a lot of content in this world that's all out there, podcasts and YouTube videos and Facebook Lives and all the things in between. I want you to imagine you're now at the end of your life, and all of that has disappeared, and you can only be remembered for one sentence. What would you want that sentence to be?
Oh, that's a good one. I would want to be remembered for helping people to remember that they are a light here in this world and that I help them to remember that they're a light in this world.
I love it. I love it. And so I wrap up every single interview with the same question. But as a reminder, what's the website again? What are the social handles?
ClarityByChristy.com and at Christy Clarity.
Awesome. So since the show is called the Growth Now Movement, the last question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
My biggest moment of growth was the most impactful experience I've ever had. And I'm going to try to tell this without getting emotional because I have trouble not getting emotional every time I tell this. This was a situation where my son got really sick. And I'm going to tell this in the short version, but he ended up in the hospital. And we got to a place where the doctors were not able to tell us that he was going to be okay. In fact, when the doctor came to tell me that he had developed this condition, she had tears in her eyes. And
Mm,
so it got really scary and things were not looking good. And obviously, we've talked about my connection with angels and energy and all that stuff. I'm sitting there the whole time, like, God, why aren't you doing anything? These angels that are here in the room with us, why aren't you doing anything? Why is nothing changing? And it seemed like for so long, things got worse and worse and worse. And so I had this day, this moment where I went to the chapel at the hospital. And I got a really clear sense that in that moment, that I was trying to control the situation too much and that I needed to surrender it.
mm.
And so I did. But that was a really tough thing too, because essentially I was saying, I'm handing this to you, God. I don't know where this is going, but I have to let go of my grip, even if my grip was holding on to my child. And so I had to let that go. And I made that decision right there in that moment, a genuine surrender, and I let that go. And within 2 days, the entire course of his health shifted. They told me he was going to be on dialysis the rest of his life. They told me they didn't know if he was going to make it. And in under a week, he was home from the hospital and he hasn't had to have dialysis another day in his life. And I truly believe through that experience that I needed to learn in that time surrender so that I could teach other people how to surrender. Because the truth is, the power of surrender is the most incredible thing. And when you can learn to let go, what you're doing is you're getting out of the way so that God can step in and take care of it.
Beautiful. And you didn't cry. So congratulations. And now you have
I didn't
two.
cry. I didn't
Now
cry.
you
I
have
didn't get to
two.
like some of the more powerful parts, but he was, yeah, it was truly the most amazing miracle and the most powerful shift I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
Yeah. And now you have two very tall 13-year-old twin boys, who are,
Very tall.
I see pictures and I'm like, I don't know which one's which. I wouldn't be able to tell. Like that's how identical they are.
Yeah.
But absolutely wild. Christy, thank you so much for coming on the show. Finally, I apologize.
Yes.
And sharing your journey, and we're gonna have you back on again because we're gonna go even deeper down that rabbit hole because I always find that super fascinating. And so guys, make sure if you want us to go deeper down that rabbit hole quickly, shoot us a message, let us know. Christy, thank you for being a light in the world and teaching other people how to be a light. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.